Hi, everybody. Tonight we're going to be giving some instructions for how to work on our two summer projects that we have as part of the Seward Johnson celebration. One is the painted trays, and the other is a scratch block project. And what the purpose of tonight is to give you is some instructions so that you can work on this totally at your leisure all summer long. So on the call tonight is myself. I'm the executive director of the Hopewell Valley Arts Council, and Megan Hayes, who is one of the talented artists from the Johnson Atelier. Megan is in charge of all the painting and the restoration and all the patinas of the sculptures that come out of the Seward Johnson Atelier. And some of you might be intimidated by the word atelier and not really know how to say it. But anyway, it's a French word that means a private workshop or studio that usually has a master artist in it and a lot of students and apprentices. So that's certainly the case at the Seward Johnson Atelier. Megan's an amazing artist in her own right, and I'm glad to have her on the call. So I'm going to start with the scratch blocks. A scratch box is a tile that is a tile made of resin bonded sand that's in a frame, and I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. And you use that mold to create a shallow design that you carve out, which makes a relief. This pictures on the side here are some of pretty special ones that I think are not done by the average person. So don't get intimidated, but that's a picture of what these molds will look like. These are 6x6 molds that are all put together here. Looks like an underwater scene. So when you get your kit, each kit will include the 6x6 sand mold, which is that square thing there, a simple carving tool, some printed instructions, and some pages to help you lay things out. In addition to the simple tool you'll get in the kit, Megan gave me this picture of all these cool tools and things that they use when doing molds like this. So feel free to grab anything, a fork, a screwdriver, whatever. It seems to work just fine. Once you carve them and we get them back from you, the atelier folks will clean them up and get them all ready to be have the pour with the aluminum poured in, and that's a cool picture there. The pour at the foundry will be recorded so that we can all watch it after the fact. And then once it's all cleaned up and finished, they'll put a really pretty, it's called an Aluma black finish on it, which is like the one there at the bottom. So that's a little overview. Now I wanted to show you a few more instructions. I'm going to have to get out of, here we go. Hold on a second. Here we go.
Hello, I'm Henry from the Seward Johnson Atelier, and I'm going to show you guys how you can create sculpture by using our scratch block. Now, before we discuss the final product of using this kit, we're going to go over the contents of what comes in it. You're going to have simple literature that's going to show you kind of the basics and reminders, and we're going to cover a lot of the information in this kit in the video, as well as some simple pages that are going to help you with layout later on. And of course, it comes with a blank scratch block ready for you to carve your art into, including the carving tool itself. To better explain how we get from a blank block to a carved one to now the final relief, let's watch a few things. A scratch block is made of resin bonded sand. By carving, you are creating higher texture in the finished casting. When the mold is handed along to the foundry, it is then coated with a protective layer of graphite. This is then ready to have melted metal poured inside. Once the metal has cooled and solidified, the casting is then cleaned up, then blackened with a patina. The high spots will come out in a shinier finish than the low spots. This is your completed casting. Hold on. You don't want to carve where you could potentially ingest loose particles. Instead, set up a specified area to capture loose sand while carving.
Now that we're in an appropriate area where we could start carving our block, keep in mind, you're not just limited to the texture you can create by the pointed or rounded end of the tool supplied. You could also consider using the end of these needle nose pliers. You could use Phillips or flathead screwdrivers, an end of an old file, and remember, you could always use your trusty spoon. Something to keep in mind while carving is the rule of nail. By gripping the nail between your thumb and index finger, slide your fingers down to the top of the scratch block wall. The distance from the tip of the tool to your fingernail is the maximum depth that you should carve. Use this to double check yourself if you're worried about carving too deep. If you carve too deep, the metal could leak through the bottom during pouring. Now, if you're choosing to carve something that needs to be readable in your final casting, keep in mind you're going to have to carve it in your block reverse. For example, look at the TSJA logo on this side in the carving and the TSJA logo on the casting. Readable backwards. To further illustrate that, within your kit, we actually supplied a piece of paper that shows that clear illustration. When carving in reverse, it will actually come out of the mold in positive, readable form. With a better visual representation, we included a sheet that is the exact working border of your scratch block. You could use a permanent marker to draw your design because when you flip it, the image is then shown in reverse. This is now your template to trace your design into your scratch block. When placed over your scratch block, use your tool to lightly poke through the paper into the sand following your template. Once the template is removed, simply connect the dots, varying your texture and depth as you wish. You could also use a pencil to draw your design directly on the carving surface or trace with permanent marker as needed. Now that you have all the information that you need, remember, there's not one way to do this. Experiment with your creativity. Thanks for watching.
So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what is involved in doing this. Henry did a great job explaining it, I think. I don't know about you. I'm not sure I would try using words right away, right off the bat. I think I'd stick to something a little more basic. But well, I don't know. You guys might be more ambitious than I. Let's see. I wanted to tell you a couple things about the timeline, but before we do that, Megan, why don't I have a couple questions that maybe you can answer. What if you start to work on this and you mess up? Like, I don't know, I guess there's a couple different kinds of mess up. Like you mess up your picture, or you go through too far. Can you like tell us a little bit, is that disaster?
It is a subtractive process. So if you mess up, there really is no putting the material back into the block. So I would kind of say you have to embrace it and maybe work it into the design or decide to make that a more solid element and you could build that out. If you accidentally go too deep, and for some reason pierce, through all the way to the back side of the block or anything like that, it's not the end of the world. You should definitely slow down. Don't carve so deep, because you don't want the block to crack in any way. So I would avoid that area after that. But that's not the end of the world. Don't feel like your block's completely ruined. We do have ways in the shop that we can fix that hole and it can still get cast. So you don't have to worry about that too much. I think the number one thing is that you should just go slow. Take your time. Really plan it out. Take your time. And just start, messing around with the tools to start and just see how it feels, and then if you decide, oh, this works really good, go deeper. And, the deeper you go, when you're doing your design, the deeper you go, the higher the mark will be raised on the surface when it's cast. So if you put very shallow carving lines in, those will be very shallow raised, lines on the surface. And if you go deep, you're going to have a much deeper element. I actually have this here. I brought a block, kind of an unfinished block here. But you can see, like, if you look at it from the side, the JA were carved down a lot deeper in the scratch mold. So they are raised further on the surface. So you kind of are layering things So the things that are going to be the farthest sticking off the surface, they're the things that you carve the deepest. And then the things that are that are shallower, like this circle is behind the JA, it's shallower, so it was carved shallower. So you're kind of carving in layers. So your deepest elements will be your most highly raised elements, and your shallower elements will be the things that are kind of, you know, in the background, just very casually on the surface. So it's just something to think about if you also want to just like play with depths in your design. If you'd like something to be a little shallow or something to be a little more raised, you control that by how deep you carve. So that's
somebody could do everything at the same level if they were
you can if you like. You
something
can do
simplistic. But
yeah,
so
you
when you're
want to be
planning,
simplistic.
mhm,
Yeah. But if you'd like there to be, you know, a circle, and then on the circle there's something coming off of it, the thing coming off's the deepest element, and then the circle around it's a little shallower. You're kind of thinking in layers.
right.
So, yep.
You know, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the people who carve our pumpkins. Same kind of thing when you're digging in there. You have to think about the in backwards kind of in a way. So I guess it's all about planning a little bit. You just
A
can't
little
just
bit.
jump in
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, if you have the time, I think work out your design, figure out what element, you know, you want to be the most prominent element, and then kind of work your way backwards a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Can you think of anything else that we should know?
I don't think so. I mean, the video is pretty straightforward. You know, I think the rule on the tool for depth is good. Just judge it by that side wall of the block. You can draw right into the block, you know, Sharpie, pencil, whatever. You can trace something in with tracing paper. There's lots of different ways. You can cut up a stencil on paper and lay that down and trace it. You can do a bunch of different things, but the only thing I would say, I do have a block here too. The only thing I would say is when you're carving your block, you really do want to maintain carving only on this flat surface. Don't try to carve up into these walls, because then when it's cast, you'll have these strange textures on the edge of your block, and usually that will end up being chased off anyway. So you really just want to keep your design right onto this flat square surface. You don't need to worry about doing anything into these side walls or on this edge or anything. It's just this block in here.
So you kind of don't want it to look like, you don't do a design that looks like it's going out into the side, like keep a border, a small border around
Yeah.
it. That makes sense.
Yep.
That's a good tip.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're all going to give it a whirl. I know at Timberlane, the students did it and it came out great. So if they can do it, we can do it. So I'm sure we'll be
You
fine.
can do it. They're going to be great.
I just wanted to remind you of a couple things around the timeline. This project has a little more structure to it just because of the pour. So anybody can sign up between July 15th and August 15th. You can email us at the email there to make arrangements for us to get the kit to you. But we need to have the kit back by your completed mold back by Friday, August 25th, which will give us a chance to gather them up. Hopefully I don't have to chase too many of you down. And then on the week of August 28th, we'll be taking them up to the Johnson Atelier, and they will be doing the aluminum pour, which again will be recorded for us to look at. And then they'll do their magic cleaning things up a little bit, and we'll have them available for you to pick up. So that's pretty much that project. Megan, is there anything that you might want to, anything else you can think of that I might be
No,
missing?
I think that's pretty good, pretty straightforward. Like we said, you're going to get pretty much everything you need in your kit, and then there really is no wrong way to carve it. So whatever works in your house, anything you've got will work. So I
Great.
do love a spoon. I do love a fork. So those are always great.
Yeah, that's great. We all have them, right? Okay, and if anybody does have any questions, just forward them to us, and we'll make sure we get the answers to you. I want to just move on then to the painted trays. Some of you might have been to the exhibition we had of Seward and India Johnson's work at the Pennington School earlier in the beginning of our celebration. So Seward started painting these trays a long time ago. I think I heard he has hundreds of them. I don't know if that was a little bit of an exaggeration. Hundreds, it's hundreds. Oh gosh. Anyway, so he called them, it was really charming. He called it his midnight snack art. And when he couldn't sleep, he would paint trays. And I just think they're so charming. He painted so many different kinds of things, like, you know, from the different places he was at during the year. He would paint his memories from that, or happy times in his life. He had a lot of the paintings of his dog and things like that. He used watercolor, acrylic paint to paint. They're very charming and almost looks like folk art. I wanted to share some of them with you. This was a book, if anybody gets really into it, it's a lovely coffee table book called Midnight Snack Art. And it's close-up pictures of a lot of Seward's trays, and they're broken down in the book by, you know, some Hopewell and then Florida and different places where they spent their time. And as you can see, these trays are all different shapes. Like the one on the right is kind of hexagonal. The one on the left had a metal cutout in it with a handle. So I think you just kind of have to look at the tray you're going to use and figure out, do you want to run with it with the borders? Do you want to highlight them? What do you want to do? Here's a couple other one. There shows a round tray. And then I think it's interesting, the one on the right, the left part of the right half of the page, he painted right up through the edge of the tray, which I thought was interesting to make it look like it's totally a painting. And then the one with the peacock had some cutouts in the side that he then painted, you know, to accentuate that as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I just wanted to show you some of Seward's. And then Megan, actually, we had a little class we were very lucky to get in Seward's private studio, which had the class in, and that's our friend Mary on the left there. You could see she had a little drawing that she wanted to copy. So she would mix all her different colors on her little palette and then paint. You can see she didn't get to the point of doing the rim around it, but she was working on the inside part. And in the class, you can see there were all crazy things we did. Somebody did a parrot, someone did look like an alien life form, a tiger lily. It was really a lot of fun. So just whatever you want to do, whatever floats your boat, that's what you should do. So this project you're going to do on your own. So this is the list of supplies that we suggest that you get. Primer, which I'll talk about a little bit more, just a sketch pad. Again, you want to plan what you're going to do. Although this one, you can totally paint it over and start over if you wanted to. A palette or paper to use as a palette, brushes, and a container for water. And then at the bottom here, you'll see acrylic mediums. Oops, sorry. Oops, trying to move this little bar here. There we go. Some of you may not be familiar with acrylic mediums, but if you go to an art supply store, they have them. And what mediums do, there's different kinds, but basically what they do is they change how the paint looks and feels and how it performs on the paper. It's like, for example, if you wanted to loosen up the paint or add texture to it, there's different mediums for all those different things. And one thing that I use them for a lot of times is just it slows down the drying time of the paint, because acrylic paints dry pretty fast. So it gives you a little more time to work on things. And then, of course, finally, you can always protect your work using a medium. Let me go into, oops, let me see, there we go. You know, how to go about it. So first of all, I think you got to, oops, I keep doing that. I'm moving something on my screen that you guys can't see. There we go. First of all, you got to find a tray. you can go to the flea market. You know, a lot of us have things our grandmothers had given us that we haven't used in a long time. You know, I would think about the shape and the size of it, so that might decide how you want to handle your design. Make some simple sketches, select your paint colors, and then before you get going, clean your tray really well. Make sure all the gunk's off of it and let it dry completely. Megan, do you want to pick up from here? Talk about the how to prepare with the primer. Do you want to, could you handle that?
Yeah, sure. So I think we talked about it, since everyone's going to go out and find kind of their own tray. If you end up finding something that is raw metal, with no painted finish already on it, or if it's something you'd like to, if you have the capacity to blast it off, or you want to have just a clean metal tray, then you definitely want to prep it with something good. I am concerned also, like, a lot of these serving trays and things, they do have a polish, they're kind of shiny. I think you might just have, for longevity's sake, some of your paint might start to flake off or peel off if we don't kind of scuff that surface. So the first thing I would say is, if you have a very shiny metal tray that doesn't already have a finish on it, it's just raw metal, you're definitely going to want to clean it, and then you're going to want to scuff it down in some way. Maybe use like a really high grit sandpaper just to rough it up a little bit, or places like Lowe's, Home Depot, they sell things called like conditioning pads. They'll sell like a red pad or a green pad. They have different, like, they're very similar to sandpaper, but they're very flexible. They're more like a squishy pad, and you can kind of rough up a surface with those. Those are good to use. And then you would just want to prime it. So anything that says that it's a direct to metal primer is suitable. Most things that say they're epoxy based or an epoxy primer are suitable. Again, your local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, they're all going to have types of, just in an aerosol can, a little spray primer that you can use to coat that. Just look for it to say that it's direct to metal or suitable for a metal finish. And again, or an epoxy. Epoxies are good because they really stick to anything. So anything that's epoxy based would probably also be okay to prime your tray with. If you have a tray that's already painted, that already has some type of finish on it, and you're not really going to be taking that entire old finish off, you're just going to be working over it, I would say, again, just make sure you clean it well, just wipe it down, get any dirt, dust off. And again, if it feels like it's already got some kind of sheen to it, like it's already been sealed with something, maybe just use a scuff pad and scuff it up a little bit again, but then you're probably free to prime that with whatever you'd like. I don't really think you'd have to worry about too much putting some type of direct to metal or epoxy based primer over something that's already painted. You probably, as long as you scuff up the surface, or if it feels like it's already kind of matte and has some texture, you probably could just go ahead and prime that like you would a canvas with some gesso or any type of like white primer or base paint, and then kind of go to town and enjoy yourself after that. And then I think when we were talking about the additives and things, that's the same type of thing you can look for sealing it at the end when you're done. You could either use a brush-on sealant, some type of acrylic varnish or sealer, or again, your local hardware store or homeware store is going to have different spray sealants for different things, and just kind of look for something that fits your bill. If you used acrylic paint, you should use something that's okay for over acrylic paints and things like that. A lot of sealants are important because they have a bit of UV protection. So if this is something you want to, that's something to really think about if you're going to hang it outside, or you want it to be using it at a picnic or something. You might want to seal it with something a little more hardy. But if this is something that's just going to hang in your home on the wall or things like that, you could get away with all kinds of things. Probably even get away with like Mod Podge, like clear, any type of clear sealant. You just want to pick something that's right for what you want to use it for.
Right. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
you're the queen of finishes and restoration and patina, so you listen to you. Yeah. And then if you want to display your finished masterpiece, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Obviously, there's old plate stands or hangers that like our grandmothers used to have stuff hanging on, or even some adhesive hooks that they sell, because it'll be pretty light for the most part. So that should be a lot of fun. I also wanted to mention, I do a lot of mixed media collages, and I was thinking it might be fun to do a little decoupage along with the painting. There's nothing that says we have to stick right with painting, so kind of let your mind, let your imagination go. Let me see here. Keep going here. We're almost done. The timeline for this one is pretty unlimited. You can paint as many as you want, 1, 2, 10. You might become like Seward and end up with cornering the market on all the trays in the flea markets, and start your own collection. Some of you might be not interested in doing all the priming and stuff. We will have some trays that are ready to paint that have been primed and things, if you want to purchase that from us. So with this one, we were thinking if we have a good response, that we might have a little show. That's the only reason why we have a deadline on this. We were thinking in November that those that want to participate in it, we might have a community show of all our tiles and trays that we created. So other than that, I mean, I just hope this is maybe a fun new hobby that you might want to start doing this summer. I don't think there aren't any questions that have come in. Megan, can you think of anything else with this one?
No, I think this is pretty much like you said, just have fun with it. You can really do anything you want, honestly. You know, you can even throw some gold leaf in there. You could do whatever you like, you know.
That'd be neat. I guess
That was very cool.
thinking of a tray as a canvas is the novelty, I guess, of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it could be wall art, it can be utilitarian. You could make it as something you're gonna serve things on or use, or it's just a piece of art that is on the wall. It's like anything you want it to be, really. It's pretty open-ended.
Yeah. So that's it for this evening. We have a lot of fun fun events and activities going on around the Seward Johnson project all summer and into the fall. So go to our website to see the full list of things. We're adding things every week, and we hope you have fun with this project. You know, I don't think this is about creating a masterpiece necessarily. I think what we're trying to do is trying to get people to tap into their creativity. And some people say they're not creative, but I think you might be surprised at what you come up with. So thanks for being part of this, and I hope to see you soon. Have fun. Bye.